One of the most common elements in HTML is the div element, and it just looks like this. It requires an opening and a closing tag, and if you look at the source of basically any web page, 99.99% of the time you will see at least one of these, if not dozens or possibly hundreds of these elements. Now a div element has no special use. It's a blank block element. That means a div element is going to take up as much width as its parent container will allow it. If you're unfamiliar with the difference between a block and an inline element, go back to the block versus inline element video, and you'll learn the difference there in just a couple of minutes. The div element is simply a dummy element. It has no special purpose, no special uses, and it's totally customizable through CSS. We're not covering CSS here, but it is important to know that the div element will be found pretty much everywhere in the internet, that HTML5 has created many elements that are now standardized in order to reduce the amount of divs and separate the information. For example, in HTML5, we've got the header element, we have the footer element, and many, many, many more. Before HTML5, everything was a div. It was a div, ID is equal to footer, something along these lines. Now, while this is still acceptable, if you're writing a particular piece of code for a footer or a header or a navigation, that's another good one. You'll see quite often nav. You're going to want to use one of these. And again, there are many of these, but these are just the three that we're going to cover right now. But ultimately, there's nothing wrong with using a div element like this. It is preferred in HTML5 that you use one of these, but if you have to use a div, you have to use a div, and that's what it's there for. There's no task for this video. This is purely educational to let you know that the div is a dummy element. It has no special purpose, no special uses, and it's completely customizable. Many other elements are customizable to the nth degree. However, the div is basically a blank slate. It is a blank block element that you can do basically anything with. Now, at this moment in time, if you're just starting off with HTML, you can't do a whole lot with the div except create blocks that go from the left to the right of your entire page. It's not that useful, but as you become a more skilled developer, the div element is one of those elements that you write hundreds and hundreds of times, possibly hundreds of times even in just a single day.